I think I'm gonna. Yeah, it's before 10 today, so let's see how quickly I can get done.
Deadly shooting. Chiefs fans running for safety after shots are fired at the Super Bowl victory rally. One person dead, as many as 22 people shot.
22?
Among those, 11 children. Police snipers.
Oh my God.
3 suspects now in custody. Just moments before Travis.
Yeah, we need more guns, as a matter of fact, right? Because that's the only thing that's going to stop the bad guys with the guns. Is if everybody had a gun, then problem solved. Nobody would get shot.
Kelsey, Patrick Mahomes, and their teammates celebrating with
I'm
a
being
crowd of an
sarcastic. It's the
estimated
dumbest
1
line of
million
thinking I
people.
can think of.
Our team at the scene. Also tonight, the standoff in Washington, D.C. 3 police
I gotta
officers
crank
shot.
this up, by the way.
The suspect barricaded for hours, still firing shots. Police escorting children to safety. The troubling rise in crime in the nation's capital. The top Republican warning of a serious national security threat and urging President Biden to declassify information on it.
They Botoxed his face up so much,
News,
man.
It has to do
He's
with
like
Russia
99%
and space.
Botox.
The major win for Democrats, flipping George Santos's former House
That wasn't
seat
very
when it
hard to
could
do,
come
honestly.
November. The U.S. investigating Israeli strikes that killed civilians in Gaza.
Oh.
And did Israel use controversial white phosphorus in Lebanon? And the young pinball wizard who gave me some pointers 10 years ago.
More importantly,
Now
the
he's
pinball
all
wizard,
grown
yes,
up with a
of
major
course.
claim to fame.
This is
Did
NBC
they?
Nightly News
Did
with
they
Lester
now?
Holt.
Good evening. A moment of hometown pride and celebration turned to fear and bloodshed in Kansas City this afternoon when shots were fired at a parade honoring the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Tonight, at least 1 person is dead, and up to 22 people
22
were shot.
people were
Several
shot.
reported to be in critical condition. The shots rang out near the city's Union Station at the conclusion.
In the Union Station? So what I heard was they arrested 3 people that were associated with this. Supposedly. I'm sure 1 person had to be the shooter. What anybody else had to do with that, I don't know. That kind of is the problem when you say that everybody should have a gun. Because once everybody has a gun, the cops do not know how to differentiate between who the shooter is, who the active shooter is, and who the person defending the public is, because to the cops, everybody has a gun, everybody needs to get shot. I'm sorry, that's going to be the way it is. That's the way it's viewed by police. Everybody is a threat, and especially if you have a gun, the police have in the past killed and shot people that were shooting at the offender. So if you want to be a vigilante and whip out your gun, everybody can say they're on the side of the police when they start shooting, and then the police show up and they'll just start blasting at everybody.
Conclusion of the parade.
Unless
Police
you're wearing
say
a
3
uniform.
individuals were detained at the scene. Witnesses shared scenes of chaos as police tried to contain the area. As many as 1 million people were expected for today's victory rally. Following the shooting, police pressing confused and what appeared in some cases to be unaware fans to leave the area. Our Jesse Kirsch is there for us tonight. Jesse,
Yeah,
what is
I don't
the
think they're
latest?
going to be doing victory rallies anymore.
Lester, a short time ago, a hospital announcing that several children are among those shot after a giant party turned deadly. Tonight, what was meant to be a day of celebration for Kansas City
shots fired on the west side.
instead became a day of fear and panic.
We just heard a bunch of, pop, pop, and people started running and scattering. The girl next to me, where my daughter was standing with her husband, was shot in the mouth. Our children witnessed it. She was on the ground, bleeding from her mouth, all over her shoulder.
Police say at least 1 person was killed and at least 22 shot after a shooting at a parade celebrating the Chiefs' 2nd straight Super Bowl win.
Immediately, officers responded to the area, took 2 people into custody, and also
This is the United States,
rendered
man.
life-sustaining aid to those victims.
Just moments earlier, it was an all-out party. Officials had prepared for about 1 million people to pack downtown.
Kansas City, let me hear you one time!
It was all winding down when suddenly the atmosphere changed.
We might have a situation here we're trying to keep an eye on.
Our Kansas City station KSHB was broadcasting live.
The mood has definitely shifted here as we're seeing everybody jump barriers.
You think you might be in danger?
Confusion in the crowd as some fans began to flee.
They said active shooter, and then so we just dropped down to the ground. My daughter tried to climb on top of me to protect me, and I tried to just hold her so nothing would happen to her.
Police rushed in, searching for the shooter. The police chief says the response was immediate, with more than 800 officers already on scene for the parade.
I'm angry at what happened today.
Who did they tackle then?
The people who came to this celebration should expect a safe environment.
The injured carried out on stretchers. A sniper stood ready on a nearby rooftop. 3 law enforcement officials briefed on the case tell NBC News the shooting is believed to be criminal in nature and not terrorism. Before the parade, I asked the mayor about plans to keep the
22 people were shot, and it's not terrorism. Brother, what? What did you just say? It's criminal in nature, but it's not terrorism. If this is not homegrown terrorism, I don't know what is, man. Like, I really don't know what do you call terrorism then? Actually, you know what? Never mind. I know what you call terrorism. Okay.
event safe.
Our police department's prepared for whatever comes our way.
The mayor says all Chiefs players, coaches, and staff are accounted for and safe. Tonight, the Chiefs writing in a statement, "We are truly saddened by this senseless act of violence." And 3 days after winning the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes posting, praying for Kansas City.
Jesse, what is the latest on the investigation?
Police say 3 people have been detained tonight, Lester, and authorities are looking into the possibility one of them was captured on camera being tackled by bystanders. Lester?
All right, Jesse Kirsch, thank you. And this shooting, now the latest violent incident tomorrow, a joyous occasion in America. And it's shining a light on the major challenge law enforcement faces when trying to protect a public event. Let's get more from Stephanie Gost.
They're asking people to get down.
Tonight, another city is really... The Kansas City Chiefs celebrating a championship.
I just did the worst thing. I removed all my components at once. Hold on, let me try it again. Yeah.
June, when the Nuggets won the
Dude. Tell me how to fix it. Alright, I think I got audio back. I think so. Can I get my mouse back? Alright, I got audio back, I think.
the title.
Got the mouse back.
10 people
I think
were
I'm good.
shot and injured in an area where fans were celebrating.
I'm not
Police
doing
said
that again
multiple
midstream.
weapons were recovered, along with at least 20 rounds.
This unnecessary instance of
Yeah, if it was an Arab American or even, I'm sorry, just Arab period, anybody brown, yeah, that terrorism. If it was anybody else, though, not terrorism. But hold on, they would have to do it in a terrorist fashion, which means that something would have to blow up.
Gun violence.
Unless they're white. Like the AT&T building bombing, not terrorism. Mental health.
That occurred literally in the midst of thousands of community members who were peacefully celebrating.
Police say they believed drugs may have played a role. In recent years, holiday celebrations have also become targets. Like in 2022, the July 4th parade at Highland Park, Illinois. 15 minutes into the festivities, a 21-year-old man opened fire with a high-powered rifle from a rooftop, according to authorities. 7 people were killed and 48
injured. Were injured.
I think we've got to get, a strong leadership that cares.
In 2021, the theme for the annual Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin was
100%, always.
A man with a long history of mental illness slammed his car into the crowd. 6 people were killed and over 60 injured, some critically. Large outdoor gatherings are complicated.
That dude was in the tree.
Made more difficult by the prospect of people being armed in the crowds.
We were here for a safe celebration, and because of 2 bad actors or more,
they don't even know.
The former mayor of Baltimore, Maryland, Stephanie Rawlings Blake, just posted online that when the Ravens held their Super Bowl parade a number of years ago, all she can think of were possible threats to the celebrations. It's a stark...
Why? Why specifically in Baltimore?
Reminder, Lester, of just what's on public officials' minds when they stage these large public gatherings like this.
All right, Stephanie, thank you. We'll turn to another shooting. This one in Washington, D.C. 3 officers shot while serving a warrant at a home. The suspect barricaded inside tonight. As Garrett Hake reports...
So every time they show a L for the cops, L this way, for the cops, they have to show a W. So here's the cops with their SWAT Lenco. This is their big SUV that they get from Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever it served. They go plow it into somebody's living room and park it on their lawn.
Tonight, a D.C. neighborhood locked down for hours as police...
But this is exactly the way the news operates, if you notice. Anytime they talk bad about the cops, they have to talk good about the cops. They have to show the good that the cops did, like, when they rescue a puppy, even though cops shoot, like, on average 30 dogs a day. That is a real statistic. Cops shoot and kill 4 people a day, on average.
One officer struck twice in the chest, his vest stopping both bullets. What do you make of it?
So I grew up in the district. We are kind of migrating back to times of old.
The shootings are the latest high-profile incident in a city where violent crime spiked 39% last year, even as it fell across the country. The district recording its deadliest year in 2 decades. The police union...
And that's it. We got to flood DC with all cops, and then the crime will stop because, cops don't commit crime at all.
Well, I think not just here in the city, I think across the United States.
Her cop husband drowned 3 kittens. Why?
Official and father of 3
Hold on, why?
January carjacking, helping
for fun or what?
D.C. crime into a presidential campaign issue, with Donald Trump floating a federal takeover of the self-governing district.
It's a crime fest right now.
It's a crime fest. That dude was talking shit about D.C. like a month ago, man. He said D.C. looks like a hellhole. It looks dirty, and I guess he was trying to say that, like, I don't even remember. Damn. But yeah, he was trying to say like DC's a dirty like hellhole. I think he was trying to say it because like Joe Biden's been there, but the majority of DC residents that should be looked into as to probably why he was saying those things.
Is trying to address the rise in
I don't think he likes the people that live in DC.
Resources into the district, including by creating a new specialized gun unit. Lester?
Thank you.
Okay, so there's a specialized gun unit. There was an HBO show What was it called? HBO. We run. Damn it! I can't type. My keyboard is dead again. I'm gonna plug. I have it plugged into this USB hub. HBO. We run this. Yeah, we run this city. We own this city. Okay, this was a very good show. I highly recommend watching this. John Barenthal is very good in it. He definitely plays an asshole very well, which I think he's done that in a lot of his roles. But highly recommend watching this if you can get HBO Go, or if you could just watch it bootleg or whatever. Definitely check that out. I think it was because one of their cats gave birth to them or something, so instead of giving them away, he drowned them. Oh my God.
A top Republican sounding the alarm today about what he warns is a serious...
You know, there is statistics and things that they say about cops that, like, you know, once you're a cop for long enough, you kind of lose your humanity because you can't be connected mentally, and if you are, then it kind of affects you. Like, it affects your thinking, and they tell you not to think about things like that when you're on the job because, you know, think about it this way. Like, if you're a cop and you had morals, or you had you were morally obliged to do the right thing, you wouldn't be writing a $200 ticket to somebody that gets paid $7.25 an hour. Right? I mean, taking away hundreds of hours of their work. You wouldn't do that. But if you don't think about it, then it makes the job a lot easier, and then that kind of molds your mind into not thinking about these things that are morally wrong or morally right. You just do them.
Security threat, and we're learning it has to do with Russia's capabilities in space.
Oh no! Where's the Space Force?
Tonight, President Biden facing calls to declassify details following a cryptic warning that there's a, quote, serious national security threat to the U.S. That ominous and highly unusual.
We need the Space Force.
House Intelligence Committee Chairman,
Execute.
Republican Mike Turner, saying the president needs to make that move so that Congress, the administration, and our allies can openly discuss the actions necessary to respond to this threat.
These are words, yes.
Sources with knowledge of the matter tell NBC News that threat refers to a Russian
there it
military
is.
capability. With two
Whatever that giant dildo-looking thing is.
To Russia's military capabilities in space. We pressed the president's national security
advisor. It's gonna goon all the way into space.
Can you tell Americans
and then
that
we're
there's
screwed.
nothing they have to worry about right now in terms of what he describes as a national security threat?
In a way, that question is impossible to answer with a straight yes, right? Because
I watched the majority of his press conference earlier. Complete
Americans,
scumbag.
Understand that there are a range of threats and challenges in the world. I'm confident that President Biden, in the decisions that he is taking, is going to ensure the security of the American people going forward.
A top House Democrat is urging calm.
There's really no cause for panic or alarm around this particular piece of intelligence.
And tonight, this from the House Speaker.
I mean, I gotta agree with that statement. I think they kind of overblow these things a lot of the time.
We're working on it.
Two U.S. officials tell NBC News President Biden has been tracking the threat and directed his national security advisor to engage with top lawmakers. With a meeting already set for tomorrow,
I have to laugh
the
at
U.S.
that.
has long been concerned about Russia's missile and nuclear capabilities.
Dog, we have we have
missiles
missiles up the ass. We have missiles in every country that you can think of that we have a base in. Like, we have almost 800 bases in the world. Who do you think has the most missiles in the world?
Light weapon systems.
But we're freaking out
Peter,
because
you
of
also
this.
had new reporting this evening about President Biden's interview with the special counsel, Robert Hur.
Lester, President Biden became heated, you'll remember, responding to the special counsel's assertion that he could not remember within several years when his son Beau died. Last week, the president criticized Hur for asking him about it.
How in the hell dare he raise that? Frankly, when I was asked the question, I thought to myself, wasn't any of their damn business.
I gotta agree.
NBC News has learned that Hur never asked that question, according to two people familiar with the interview last fall. They say it was the president, not Hur or his team, who first introduced Beau Biden's death. The sources say the president got the date, May 30th, correct, but not the year. Lester?
Peter Alexander at the White House, thank you. The president then...
Dude, okay, that I don't think that's a relevant question, honestly. You shouldn't be asking people about their dead kids. Never understood the hysteria around other countries having missiles or nukes. Yeah, I mean, if there's anything to remember, is the only country that's ever used nuclear weapons is the United States. To date. Nobody else has used them. There was a point in time where Israel almost used one on Egypt. That's a documented occurrence, and that almost happened. But again, probably who gave him the nukes? Like,
fellow Democrats celebrating tonight after flipping the House seat vacated by Republican George Santos. The victory coming just a short time.
That was, come on.
Impeached Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
This is stealing candy from a baby,
Tonight,
basically.
President Biden forcefully pushing back on the impeachment of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, slamming it as a, quote, blatant act of unconstitutional partisanship. Republicans have accused Mayorkas of refusing to enforce the law.
Yeah, almost. Okay, I would skip ahead, but I'll be right back. I need one second.
People accountable for what's gone on at the southern border.
But the push to impeach
I need to put a little, like,
on the same night,
be right back 1 minute thing up.
in a special election on Long Island, taking back a swing seat once held by disgraced Congressman George Santos.
We won!
Democrat Tom Suozzi attacked the impeachment of the secretary, leaned in on immigration, and hammered Republicans for backing away from the bipartisan border deal.
Tom Suozzi talked about common sense solutions and finding bipartisan common ground. Tom Suozzi won.
But Republicans shaking off the loss, noting it's a blue district that Suozzi used to represent.
That is in no way a bellwether of what's going to happen this fall.
The Democratic win shrinking the Republicans' razor-thin majority. They can now only afford to lose 2 GOP members on a party line vote. The House and Senate are not in session next week. When they return, they will only have 2 days to avoid a
Man, how many weeks did they get off? Jesus Christ.
Brian Nobles, thank you. In just 60 seconds, the American teen killed in the West Bank. His parents speaking
In the West Bank, huh?
What they are demanding from the Israeli government. Back now with the tensions in the Middle East, the U.S. launching an investigation into some of the strikes carried out by Israel in Gaza and Lebanon.
What? We're investigating Israel, the most moral army in the world? Why would we do that?
Learn more about an American teen killed in the West Bank. Molly.
Surely he was Hamas in the West Bank. I mean, that's what somebody told me the other day, is why else would they be there? Doesn't the this freaking keyboard, man? Hold on, I got a question. Does Israel have the right to operate in the West Bank? Area C? What is that? You mean these areas? Israel also has the right to enter Area A, which is home to most of the West Bank. According to operational needs, Area A is formally under Palestinian Authority administration. So this is why people don't like the PA or Fatah. They kind of just gave away everything. I'm surprised they're even covering it, but I guess they have to since an American getting killed. There's 2 Americans that got killed so far. But yeah, let's continue the story.
Has more from Jerusalem.
Tonight, as
So there's a lot of areas in the West Bank that they don't have the right to operate in, but they still operate in there anyway.
Pushes further south in the Gaza Strip, ramping up its campaign against Hamas.
And that's why they call it the occupied West Bank, because it is occupied by a foreign military, meaning that the West Bank is Palestine and not Israel.
The U.S. is now investigating Israeli airstrikes that have killed civilians, including the use
That's
of
for anybody
light
that doesn't
phosphorus in
know. If you
Lebanon
do know.
last October. The U.S.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. They
ramping
were doing what? Hold on, what? I spoke over that. Let me go back a second.
Ramping up its campaign against Hamas. The U.S. is now investigating Israeli airstrikes that have killed civilians, including the use of white phosphorus in Lebanon.
Oh, we're just now investigating the killing of civilians, including the use of white phosphorus. Months later.
Last October, the U.S. is reviewing
Last
actions against
October?
its ally as part of an effort to track how American weapons are being used. This comes
I think it's pretty obvious how they're being used.
as the conflict escalates tonight across the northern border. Israel striking back at Iranian-backed Hezbollah after an Israeli...
Oh, they always have to use Iranian-backed. So, I mean, to that point, you could say just U.S.-backed Israel, because every bomb that they drop is provided by the United States.
Israeli soldier was killed in a cross-border rocket attack.
Oh, no, they killed a soldier in a cross-border rocket attack? That's not the first time that's happened. That's happened several times, actually.
And tensions also high in the occupied West Bank.
They always present these events like they just happened for the first time ever. No, Hezbollah and Israel have been going back and forth for months, since October. That's been happening. There are videos of Hezbollah launching Cornet missiles at where IDF soldiers had just walked into the building. Yeah, and they've been dropping white phosphorus on these guys. They even were there. I don't know if it was NBC. I think it was ABC that was there. They went to go like hang out with not with Hezbollah, but with the soldiers that are in the north for the IDF, and they were like, "Oh shit, we're getting bombed. We better go hide in this bunker." Like, this has been happening back and forth for a very long time, for months. Yet they present it like as if it just started happening yesterday. But yes, an American teen was killed in the West Bank, where the current bombing campaign of Gaza is not occurring. Makes you question why.
Village of Bidou, wrapped in a Palestinian flag. The funeral procession for 17-year-old American Mohammed Kadour. Don't be scared, his younger brother whispers. His family says their gentle, kind teen was shot and killed Saturday by an Israeli settler. One human rights group...
He was killed by a settler. At least 98 Palestinian children killed in the occupied West Bank since October 7th.
Estimates nearly 100 Palestinian children...
And don't forget, Ben-Gvir gave out at least 10,000 rifles, even though he was told not to. Shame, shame. Don't do that. He still gave them out anyway to all the people that are settlers in the West Bank.
Children have been shot by settlers or Israeli troops since October.
Or Israeli troops.
The war and the killing in Gaza, but not. It's in West Bank too.
We met his parents Ahmed and Hanan. Born in Florida, Mohammed was a senior in high school here.
This dude was born in Florida. Yeah, I bet the settler was American too. I would have to definitely assume so.
His 16-year-old cousin Malik was with him Saturday afternoon at a popular place for picnics. I heard gunshots, Malik says. Mohammed was shot twice in the head. The blood still on Malik's jacket.
Oh my God.
All our life has changed. We are not the same as before. Everything is different.
U.S. officials visited the family.
There was a settler that stabbed a pregnant woman. Oh my God.
Earlier today.
We're looking for justice.
Do you think you'll get it?
I hope so.
Not in the West Bank. No. I don't think so.
Asked about that incident, the Israeli military referred us to the domestic security services, who have not responded for comment. Lester?
And they won't.
Thanks. We're back
They
in
will
a
not.
moment with a radical real estate experiment, the first planned community without cars.
It's damn communism.
There is a bold new experiment underway near Phoenix,
They're trying to take away our cars.
It's the first planned community in the
over
country
my
without
dead body.
cars, and it's changing everything about how residents there live. CNBC senior real estate correspondent Diana Olick reports.
This brand new rental community in Tempe has all the amenities: fitness center, dog park, outdoor kitchens, but something's missing.
It's a woke apartment complex.
There are no cars in this community at all.
Isn't it great?
Cul-de-sac is the
This
first
dude's like
community
7
in the
foot
U.S.
tall. What the hell?
designed and built specifically for car-free living. Co-founder Ryan Johnson says the demand is strong.
Every generation, and including 90% of Gen Z, would like to pay more to live in a walkable neighborhood.
Retail, restaurants, and to start nearly 200 apartments, all.
So I previously lived in a very walkable neighborhood that had restaurants and stuff in it.
within
I
steps
highly
of each
recommend
other.
living there.
No cars means no parking spaces, no garages.
Because we don't have residential parking, it opens
It's also
us up
better
to
for your
have
health.
55% landscape space. We get to add so much to the neighborhood.
Like social spaces around every corner.
It's woke, I knew it.
Strategically located right next to the area's light rail system. All residents get a free pass. The first 200 also get a free
everything I don't like
electric
is
e-bike,
woke.
and a partnership with Lyft gets them discount rides.
I've been fine just going via rail or
This guy's
just
shirt
biking.
is woke.
Juan Ramos,
He's wearing
among
two
the first
shirts.
100 to move in here, grew up in Arizona, but left because he didn't like the car-dependent sprawl. At 27, he just came back and says living car-free has opened his eyes.
Frankly, for most of the apartments I've lived in for years, I've never even talked to my neighbors. I know people like, that's Pete over there, that's Ben over there, and I'm like, that's the first time I've said that.
Don't tell the
Residents
cops
often
though.
gather near the retail
The
stores,
cops come
which
by, I
focus
don't
on
know
small
anybody.
businesses. Jada Stratman is moving both her Home Sense business and
All right,
herself.
this is fun. But oh, I hit the wrong button. Come back here, you. Default view. All right, yeah. Pinball story. I don't care about the pinball story. All right. Why does everybody hate Jon Stewart now? Especially me.
So Rolling Stone is not welcoming Jon Stewart back to The Daily Show. They published an article this week complaining, is Jon Stewart still the right person to host The Daily Show? The comedy vet has returned, obviously, to the desk that he left in 2015.
They don't like him talk.
This evening, but his both sides are equally bad approach may not translate to 2024. Again, that's according
You gotta
to
say-
Rolling Stone. One ex-user wrote,
Yeah,
Jon Stewart is
because
no longer
Biden's
up to
old,
the
right? Yeah, the liberals are mad because he's talking shit about Biden. It's like, okay, is Biden not old? Like, is he just like, you can only say Trump is old. You can't say Biden is old. Even though he's the oldest president that we've ever had, older than Ronald Reagan when his brain was literally falling out of his fucking ears and he didn't know where the hell he was, and he was talking about aliens and UFOs and shit more than he was talking about anything else. He's older than that.
He's incapable of an original idea, relied on lazy tropes that appeal more to the white
Lazy
dude-bro
tropes?
demographic,
Oh my
and
God.
most importantly, has joined the DC press corps in their inability to see the forest for the trees, a fail at The Daily Show.
Journalist Aaron Rupar wrote on X, Jon Stewart still has it in terms of being funny and entertaining.
Okay, Aaron Rupar is also a, like, wine mommy liberal himself. Like, he's like, oh my god, Joe Biden's so good. He didn't even criticize his policies that much. No, he did not. Which is proof that liberals are just racist with people-pleasing tendencies. That's exactly what it is.
The political content.
They want to platform Biden and just keep on pushing him and say Biden's the best thing that we got because all of our other options suck. No, that option sucks too.
Of this monologue is basically the
But-
near.
So I don't know if you saw the video that I made yesterday or the day before when I covered The Daily Show, which they won't let me post it because Paramount doesn't let you post The Daily Show. So I don't know what's going to happen to that video, that VOD. But really, like, even in his criticism of Biden, he still points out that, like, you know, Donald Trump is indicted. Donald Trump did the whole grab the pussy thing. Like, Donald Trump did this. Donald Trump did that. And, like, he, like, you know, paints down Donald Trump. And at the same time, well, yeah, he is talking shit about Joe Biden. He's still platforming Joe Biden and saying, hey, this is our option. It's not a good option, but this is our option. So, like, to say that he's talking shit about Joe Biden, sure, but he didn't mention like any third parties. He didn't mention like any alternative options of what else could happen. He didn't say that, oh, maybe we should get Gavin Newsom in there. He didn't say any of that shit. He said nothing like that. He basically says, this is our best option, so you better vote for him. Kind of like without saying it blatantly.
New York Times op-ed page in TV form. Both sides are not, in fact, equally bad. So, like, it's going to hurt your mind a little bit to try to understand what Rupar is even trying to say. Rupar is a liberal
hurt your mind
who thinks
your
that the
dumb
New York
liberal
Times,
brain doesn't think outside of the box.
Is too hard on Joe Biden.
Yes.
Okay, and they all are using this refrain. The Rolling Stone uses this refrain. You hear Rupar saying it there. Keith Olbermann, predictably, was mad about this. He got
Make it another 9 years?
Yes,
Keith Olbermann has also called on the Hill to fire you and I.
Yeah,
so
well,
we're in good company.
He's consistent, to say the least. But he also
the worst person in the world.
The refrain he keeps echoing, that everybody is echoing, is he calls him a both-siderist fraud. Both sides. The Rolling
both-siderist fraud
claims that his both sides are equally bad approach may not translate to 2024.
That's what Clipper said in the show, man. He's literally just copying what Clipper said.
What he said in that monologue. He goes.
I think people are also pissed that he didn't place any blame on voters or shame people for not wanting to vote for Joe Biden. Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a valid criticism. That's a valid point right there.
And flips the whole ageism thing on its head in the monologue by saying, yes, how bad it is to have this old octogenarian who can't remember his words. Let's take a look. And then plays videos of Donald Trump. So he really is making
and that's what I'm saying, is that he's like trying to point out that Donald Trump is bad and saying that Joe Biden is also bad, but he's not as bad as Donald Trump because he's not indicted.
Is clear, perhaps to the detriment of the public, but never mind, that Trump is worse than Biden.
Which
but
liberals should love, and they would love that if they weren't stupid and didn't see through all this stuff.
Be putting forward their best player. And
instead, they get mad that somebody's talking shit about Joe Biden because it's a team sport now.
That best enables Democrats to meet Donald Trump. What the Democratic establishment can accept is that that person increasingly is unlikely to be Joe Biden.
Yeah. So The View responded to this. Alyssa Farah welcomed him back, but then there was some dissatisfaction about just what you were saying, that there would be any criticism whatsoever of Joe Biden.
Vote for Biden or your kid's going to be killed by Putin's army is basically where this kind of Red Scare argument, this Russiagate argument has gotten us to. Look, when
oh no, Russia's going to come nuke everybody from orbit.
I hate to bring up Hitler, but and your own audience goes, maybe you have lost touch with public sentiment. Democrats really want this age issues to be a Republican creation that is being embraced by a bored media environment that's struggling for stories, and that it's a big nothing burger. But after treating it that way for years, instead of reckoning with the problem, they're now being confronted with the fact that they're just months out from an election, and the polls are what they are. This is an organic feeling that's shared by
that's literally what the rhetoric is. You gotta vote or else Putin's gonna come nuke everybody.
And I was listening to Pod Save America last night to see their take on this. They did a new episode about the Biden age issue, and they're all, former Obama-Biden White House staffers. They have their own political ideology and are very supportive of the president.
Strategically, though, if Russia was to nuke the United States, the first state that would get hit is North Dakota. So.
But even there, like, Democrats have to stop pretending like this is some kind of gotcha that they can ignore. They're falling into the Hillary 2016 trap, which is to pretend that every criticism is in bad faith and not take the opportunity to address it in ways that can actually be remedial.
Talk to someone outside the bubble. Talk to someone outside, like, a highly partisan...
So that's also another thing that liberals still say, is that we could have had Hillary for 8 years now, completely ignoring the fact that Hillary was a horrible candidate. They could have picked Bernie. They should have picked Bernie, and he would have been a much better candidate to vote for, especially if you look at where the United States is now. Young voters want something a little bit more radical. They want something that, if you want to say having a somewhat subsidized healthcare is radical, then yeah, Bernie would have been the guy. Also, I'm pretty sure a lot of his policies would have helped with housing and inflation and all those things that we're currently going through that Biden isn't really doing a lot about. Yeah, he's raised the minimum wage for federal employees. That helped 0.3% of the United States.
Media,
of workers in the United
Talk
States.
to real people, Democrats, real people.
He's
who
doing
are
that kind of
but who are
stuff.
not, at the top of the political elite, or
And then they go back and they hang their hat on those little minor wins like that and say, look at what we did. Look at this jobs report. Look at all these. Look at the economy. Look at everybody's 401k going up. There was a point when Biden and Trump were doing their debate in 2020. It was 2020, right? That's when the election was. But Trump's like, all the people with 401ks, your 401k is going to go away and it's going to go down to zero. Of course it's not. But still, what these dumbasses don't realize is that it's such a minute percent of the public that qualify for all these things that they talk about. Only 20% of people in the United States have a 401k. 20%. Think about that.
Extremely affluent and extremely plugged in. Talk to normal folks out in the swing states again.
Oh yeah, Sanders would have wiped the floor with Trump. It would have been bickering back and forth. Sure, it would have made for great TV. But at the end of the day, the policies, there was no doubt that Sanders would have wiped the floor with him.
Who might have voted for Biden last time, they will tell you they are very...
And I'm not a Bernie bro. I have my criticisms on Bernie. But as far as these candidates that they've been putting up, it's not good enough. All it shows is the slight and slighter further leaning to the right of the Democratic Party.
Concerned about his age. This is not an idea that Fox News tricked people into adopting whatsoever. It is a view that exists in the country because people see him on TV periodically and they are worried. They are worried that he increasingly cannot finish his sentences, that he is getting confused more often, that he looks visibly older than he did 4 years ago. And it is a concern. It is at the top of everybody's mind, and he's going to continue. And the press, frankly, is now asking him about it a lot, as they should. So it's going to increase as an issue as the salience of it will rise by the media finally giving it the day in court it deserves.
He's not getting younger.
Yeah.
Polls
so
show...
one thing he can't change. He could change his policies. He could change a lot of things. He cannot stop himself from getting older.
Yeah, so to be specific, 86% of voters as of a poll from this week think that Biden is too old to serve. That includes 73% of Democrats who think that Biden is too old to serve. 73% of Democrats.
73%.
Only 35% of Republicans think Trump is too old to serve.
Yeah.
And you can be mad at that, and you can scream at the heavens and say, oh, but they're the same age, as we just saw AOC do in a different clip in a different segment. But it doesn't matter. You're just screaming into the fiction, because the age thing is also not really literally about chronological age.
It's not literally about the number. It's about
Noam
their
Chomsky's
perception,
old,
right?
but other people have their wits about them and aren't seen as frail. And this is important. Too old to serve and unable to lead. That's the real critique that's being levied there.
And the whole idea that, well, it doesn't really matter because he has advisors, he's just a figurehead. But okay, tease that out a little bit. If the job of the president is really to be the front man, the chief communications officer for an agenda that is actually handled by experts and advisors, well, that actually makes it look even worse, because he is if he is not capable of doing, if the main part of the role is communicating the platform and the message and what's going on, and doing it on TV and in other interviews and other forms and on debate stages, that's the part he's least...
And that's going to be the problem, is if they start doing presidential debates, when we get to that point, it's just going to be such a clusterfuck. And really, it's not going to help either candidate when they do presidential debates. By the third one, their brains are going to be mush, both of them. And they're not going to know who the hell... It's going to be just like a geriatric nightmare. And then, it'll be worse than anything we've ever seen before. And I think it's going to draw down turnout, or turn out for a third party, which will be probably RFK. If anybody makes it as a third party candidate, it's going to be fucking RFK. And at that point, hey, both the Democratic Party and Republican parties deserve it.
Obviously least good at now. You can make the argument that the thinking's still all there, but if that doesn't matter because his main job is to be an effective
Biden's just going to slur every word and Trump is going to be Trump. Yeah. Trump is like, he used to be like a little 5-year-old. You know, he had the brain of a 5-year-old in a 70-year-old's man body. Now he has the brain of a 70-year-old man in a 70-year-old man's body. It's catching up to him real fast.
But also, what does
Serving as president catches up to you. Like, it really does. It really...
that mean about your Trump threat to democracy?
Yeah, RFK had this, he was doing this interview, and I think he was on Joe Rogan. And he was talking about Wi-Fi. And he was talking about how Wi-Fi affects the brain barrier. And he said that, you know, like all this radiation from Wi-Fi affects your brain barrier, and you know, people start having this thing, and he's like, oh, and they call it leaky brain, and like, so he's like, he is way the fuck out there. He is like way out there. Like, he was like, I was like, leaky brain? Like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, he's just totally off the rails. Perfect for a president. Whatever, let's just go. Let's go.
The argument, if he's just a figurehead,
and hold on tight, that's all I can say.
He's not so empowered. If it's really about who's around Trump as opposed to Trump himself, then is that an argument?
Because like, has anybody heard of what RFK's plan is for like the Palestine-Israel conflict? Does anybody know what RFK wants to do about Russia? Does anybody know if RFK wants to fund the Ukraine? Does anybody know like what RFK's policies are on the border? Like, no, nobody knows anything about him. Like, it'll just be absolute pandemonium.
Argument that everyone's overblowing the threat that he presents to democracy.
Point. Fantastic point. Well, that does it for us.
All right, I'm out of here. Thanks, Brianna and Bobby. Okay, so speaking of Biden, let's see what his plan. Biden's plan for the day after amounts to half a Palestinian state on half of the West Bank. Go on.
Is here in the studio with us. We heard there from the Arab Councils talking just a little bit earlier at the United Nations. Is there a chance of this new UN resolution passing, given what we've seen in the past when it comes to the US votes?
Well, this is it. I mean, given what we've seen in the past, and depending, of course, on the text of the new resolution.
I gotta crank him up.
But if the draft resolution speaks of a permanent ceasefire, it will be rejected, vetoed by the United States. One American official after another American official have made it clear over the past several days, weeks, and months that they reject the idea, the principle of a permanent ceasefire. To translate that into English, they want the war to continue. There will be no stop of the war except a temporary one. What the United States supports, if at all, would be pauses, long pauses, sustained pauses. They can have all kinds of words and adjectives being used, being thrown about,
right,
all to underline the fact that Israel can continue the war after those, whatever you want to call them, sustained, short, whatever they are, humanitarian pauses end. They could be for a few days, they could be for a few weeks. But the United States supports the Netanyahu government's goal of finishing Gaza and taking full control of it, at least for the intermediate run.
This links very...
So the United States supports the full control of Gaza by the IDF. So the full control, the full occupation of Gaza by the IDF. Got it.
Nicely to my next question, because we heard today from the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas urging Hamas to reach a truce. The word he used was truce. Why is that notable that he used the word truce rather than a permanent ceasefire?
Just a few minutes ago, I think, or an hour ago, UN National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan praised the Palestinian leader for his generosity in support of the American position. So you can imagine that Abbas's appeal to Hamas, not to Israel, not to the United States, but to Hamas.
So, in my criticism of the PA and these guys that are telling Hamas to, which Hamas is a government entity representing Gaza, the IQB is their military wing that are doing all the fighting with the IDF. Telling Hamas to give up, essentially, is definitely suicide. Telling them to reach a not a ceasefire, but to reach a truce and allow them to occupy Gaza as they previously had. Remember that Gaza was not really occupied. They would go into Gaza and then they would come back out, the IDF would. But it wasn't really occupied like it was the days before, where there were settlers there. There were no more settlers. That wasn't a thing anymore in Gaza. That is one of the reasons that when they were polling people in Gaza, whether or not they supported Hamas, they did. And whether or not they supported Fatah, which is the Palestinian Authority, they did not, because Fatah did not stand up for them. Yes, there are people that are dying because of the events that have occurred, but still, I kind of break it down into a metaphor of, well, what's better, to get eaten whole or to get eaten one gulp at a time by a snake? Like, if you want to get, do you want to get swallowed slowly? Do you want to die slowly, or do you want to maybe fight back, and maybe you still die, but at least you fought back?
Means that also the Palestinian Authority is giving up on the permanent ceasefire.
And I think that's what people don't understand of the fighting that's going on, is there's nobody else fighting for the people in Gaza.
While its ambassador at the United Nations is asking for...
And even Hamas themselves, you can say they're a radical group, but there are even more extremist radical groups in Gaza that are even worse than how Hamas was when they were initially created. I think the deals or the requests that Hamas has tried to reach with the Israeli government have been reasonable at this point, as far as their most recent requests. I think they had a 3-stage idea for a ceasefire, and that was completely rejected by Israel.
A permanent ceasefire. But in reality, speeding up, asking Hamas to speed up the process, it basically telling it to drop the idea of a permanent ceasefire that's been demanding all along, which the United States and Israel have rejected all along. Now, just to be clear, and this is, by the way, very clever, it's very complicated, but we're going to try to simplify it in less than a minute. It's hugely...
Exactly. Yes, Hamas has definitely been more willing to negotiate than Israel. That's why everybody was excited when they said that they were coming to the table, that they were both coming to the table, because it was the first time that Israel said they would finally come to the table. But it seems that has fallen through as well. So there was nothing really to be excited about, even though everybody was. I posted about it too, but I was skeptical as well.
What the United States,
and they're also working to release the hostages way more than it. Yes, like everything that Israel has done, everything that the Israeli government has done as far as the hostages go, is completely just unreasonable. Meanwhile, the Hamas government of Gaza has been attempting to strike a deal where they release the hostages, and that was part of the 3-stage deals. They were going to release everybody that wasn't a male, and then from there they would release other the rest of the hostages as time went on. But it was a deal that they should have agreed to, and they did not agree to it.
Abbas is on board with is that there will be no ceasefire. There will be pauses and more pauses. During those pauses,
yeah, if you see here, it says Palestinian Authority urges Hamas to speed up an exchange of captives for prisoners in Israeli jails.
And fighting, there will be negotiations over not just a permanent ceasefire, but a permanent ceasefire that leads to a permanent solution, which means moving forward, you can imagine a scenario whereby Israel occupies Gaza, and for Israel to stop the fighting and withdraw from Gaza, Saudi Arabia, for example, would have to normalize relations with Israel. The Palestinian Authority...
Yeah. I mean, if anything has been proven is that they are genocidal.
Or the PLO will have to accept half a state on half of the West Bank in return for a permanent ceasefire. So the Biden administration...
So they would have to give up half of the West Bank for there to be a permanent ceasefire, is what they're saying. I'm going to repeat that again.
With Israel, the Palestinian Authority, or the PLO, will have to accept half a state.
Oh, I need to go a little further back because he said something about Saudi Arabia.
A permanent solution, which means moving forward, you can imagine a scenario whereby Israel occupies Gaza, and for Israel to stop the fighting and withdraw from Gaza, Saudi Arabia, for example, would have to normalize relations with Israel. The Palestinian Authority, or the PLO, will have to accept half a state on half of the West Bank.
So even less than what they have right now. The idea is that they give up Gaza completely, move everybody out, or have it occupied, I think is what he said, is have it and have it. Oh, I got an ad break. My bad. Here, let me fix this. But yeah, I forgot. I need to go back and fix Moobot. I like Moobot's a fun little character bot to put on there, but I forgot it does ads. But yeah, so the idea is that they would the PLO would basically have to agree to. Oh man, okay, this is but okay, so the final result would be that half of the West Bank would be Palestine. That would be all that's left. Like, it would be an completely occupied Gaza, and then half of the West Bank would be what's left of Palestine, which is also occupied.
In return for a permanent ceasefire. So the Biden administration, in a clever, genius, dangerous way, is basically saying, we're going to continue with this fight. We're going to have few pauses to negotiate under pressure with the Palestinians and the Arabs, so for all of them to guarantee Israel's security once again, and to accept Israel's political conditions once again, whereby the Palestinians would happily live in a half a state on half of the West Bank, recognized by Saudi Arabia, which normalizes relations with Israel and guarantees, along with other Arab countries, Israel's security. It's a disaster unfolding in front of our eyes.
Wow.
Stay with us, Marwan, because Al Jazeera did interview a member of Fatah a little earlier today just on this issue. Jamal Nazal is a spokesperson for the Fatah movement. He defended those comments by Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas that Hamas must reach a captives for prisoners swap agreement with Israel.
Wow.
He wants a ceasefire to be reached. He wants a prisoner swap to take place, also because the families of the prisoners are...
What is the point of the prisoner swap when they're just going to arrest thousands of more Palestinians like they have been doing in these past few months? Oh, the city near you passed the ceasefire resolution? That's pretty awesome. This dude's in Germany! Oh.
are waiting. The Palestinian people
He's representing the PLO all the way from Germany.
are suffering, facing starvation, diseases, and lethal attacks by Israel.
What's gonna guarantee that they're gonna stop, I think, is kind of the issue, right? Like, because this whole time that they've done, even when they did the hostage and prisoner exchange, right? Israel immediately went back and started arresting hundreds of Palestinians that live in Israel. There are roughly 2 million Palestinians that live in Israel, that live under apartheid in Israel. And they just go back and start arresting those guys by the hundreds. So even if these people were to be released, even if the prisoners were to be released, what's to stop the IDF or what's to stop the Israeli police from going back and arresting more Palestinians to equal those numbers back out?
Of the people, you have every right to speak out.
You have to address the root of the problem, which unfortunately is what it seems like the Hamas government of Gaza is trying to do.
And call on everyone who is delaying, and we think that Israel is using delaying tactics. The onus is on Israel.
Again, this is death by 1,000 cuts, and he's just asking for the first 50, basically.
The burden of proof is on Israel. Israel has to deliver, and it should stop using all these excuses which we do not believe in. It's in Israel's hand, and also all the parties concerned who are negotiating have to reach an agreement so that our people can get into the month of Ramadan in peace.
Your reaction to
I don't think we're going to reach Ramadan in peace, honestly.
Well, I mean, certainly everyone wants peace and security and love and Valentine every day of the year. We would love a Valentine.
I love this guy, by the way.
But that's not what's happened, unfortunately. And pressing Hamas to reach a deal now means that it's not going to be a permanent ceasefire, which means after Ramadan, Israel will go back and kill more and more and more Palestinian children and occupy more and more parts of Gaza and more hospitals and so on and so forth.
Exactly.
There seems to be, and I'm going to go on a limb to say that there are different Palestinian spokespersons now around the Palestinian Authority. It's ambassadors at the UN here and there, and spokesperson of Fatah, the main faction, saying different things. A lot of them are, positive and
yeah, Ramadan is the deadliest time for Palestinians in Palestine. Yes. I guarantee you the IDF has something planned for the West Bank. They have something planned for Gaza. They probably have something planned for the 2 million Palestinians that live inside of Israel.
Wonderful and loving and so on and so forth. But the Palestinian Authority, under the presidency of Abbas and his deputy today, are basically working with the Americans in order to reach a deal, in order for them to be taking control on part of the West Bank, a bit of Gaza on the long term, but basically under Israel's control.
Okay, Al Jazeera senior political analyst Marwan Bashar, good to get your thoughts again.
For as long as it remains under Israel's control, Palestinians will continue to die. And I think that's a realization that people that argue for a two-state solution, or that argue for a solution where it's a temporary ceasefire, don't have clarity. I think that's a major problem, because we have to look at what is the end result. If the end result is just a temporary ceasefire, then guess what? The IDF's going to continue to kill Palestinians. If the end result is a as a two-state solution where Israel and Palestine exist side by side, you're just asking for an invasion again. And also, we already see what's going on with the West Bank. The West Bank is occupied, as in there is an occupied military force in a foreign country. That's why they call it the occupied West Bank. And if their solution is to occupy Gaza, then you're going to end up with the same thing that's going on in the West Bank right now, where everything seems normal, but you will continue to have the IDF shooting children and people that live there as they please, and also backing is settlers, and I'm sure they're just licking their chops at getting more settlers back into Gaza like there used to be, to basically take over pockets of Gaza just like they've been doing in the West Bank. It's all the same shit. If that doesn't stop, then what's the point of it all? What's the point of the entire negotiation if that is just going to continue later on? It doesn't make any sense. Completely agree with everything that he's saying. Okay, so this story actually we saw on the NBC News bit. Here's a doctor in Gaza, covered by Channel 4 News. I think this is fairly... Oh, this is kind of quick. No.
I'm Andy Ferguson. I'm a GP and public health specialist.
Okay, if this is too gory, I might have to skip it.
I've been a regular traveller to both Gaza for the past 14 years. I have never experienced anything like I experienced in Gaza over Christmas and New Year, and I hope that I never do ever again.
Final loader. Fingers crossed, everybody.
Access to Gaza is now really very difficult. I flew out to Cairo on Christmas Eve. We were part of a UN convoy going from Cairo to the Rafah crossing on the border between Egypt and Gaza on Christmas Day. At that moment in time, the fighting was becoming more and more intense in the middle areas of Gaza and towards Khan Yunis. We were originally due to be deployed to a different hospital, but because of the security situation, that was changed, and we were diverted to the European. When we finally made it to the hospital, our immediate impression was, wow, it was so completely different to whatever we'd seen before.
Wow.
Complete chaos reigns. There are about 22,000 people currently living in makeshift tents on the grounds of the hospital, or actually on the floors in hospital corridors themselves. You've also got some of the remaining staff living within the hospital, some of them with their families as well. The situation within the emergency department particularly was chaotic. There were hundreds and hundreds of patients in there at any moment. Many of them, because the primary healthcare system was broken down, looking for the ongoing management of their diabetes, high blood pressure, heart failure, kidney failure, cancer. And then on top of that, then you get groups of 10, 20, 30 newly injured patients, often with a number of dead bodies, arriving within that chaos.
Jeez.
By far the greatest number of injuries are those affecting the limbs. You can't imagine really the horror of some of those injuries. People who've had traumatic amputations from the blast itself of arms, legs, the most horrible, complex, devastating fractures, affecting their limbs as well. Ahmed was one of the patients that we met quite early on. So he was in the shelter with the rest of his close family when it was shelled. Absolutely tragically, the rest of his family died in that
What
attack.
the hell, man?
فيش اسعاف فيش حاجه قعدت 4 ايام انزل في المدرسه قعدت اشرب محلول ملح لانه ما كانش فيه شيء انك تاكل او تشرب.
You drink salt water?
4 ايام اجى.
So, salt water is not good for your body. Funny story about Dasani. Dasani is basically salt water. If you ever look at the ingredients of Dasani, which you would question, why does a bottle of water have an ingredients label? It does. It lists sodium as an ingredient of Dasani. So salt water makes me more thirsty because salt dries out your body. sodium is bad for your body, basically in large amounts, and it should not be in the water that you're drinking. That's not good.
قاعد يدور علينا عشان بده يدفننا فلقاني عايش.
He was resuscitated and then transferred through to the European hospital where our team found him. The shelling itself had caused a traumatic amputation of his left leg below the knee.
Been trying to preserve as much length as possible.
Wow.
Unfortunately, because of the infection, I've been unable to control the infection. There's a lot of antibiotic-resistant bacteria in the hospital.
For Ahmed and people like Ahmed,
There's an antibiotic-resistant bacteria in the hospital.
Or prosthesis, to help them walk, ongoing support rehabilitation for the rest of their lives. But despite everything that had happened to him, he was so keen to tell his story because he saw that as being important. He saw hope for himself in the future, both for him as a person and for Gaza itself, which really was very humbling and incredibly inspiring for us as a team to hear. There is intense fighting going on around the European hospital at all times. So throughout the day, whatever you were doing was accompanied by bomb blasts, the sound of tank fire, machine gun fire in the surrounding streets. It's been a really bad night. There's been the constant sound of drones and jets overhead, shelling and machine gun fire in the background. And every time that you heard that, you wondered who was on the receiving end, what buildings had been damaged, what families had been devastated by what you were hearing, and then waiting for the sound of sirens from the ambulances arriving in the emergency department, and then patients being transferred to where we were working in theatres. I'm struggling to find words for how I feel and how the rest of the group feel. Horror, disbelief, terror. We met Norhan, who's a 15-year-old girl.
I gotta skip. This is
and
really
actually,
bad.
I just heard a couple of days ago that her and the necessary volume of this, but we're now.
I think we've seen a lot of what the results have been from the attacks on the civilians. This is insightful as far as a look into what's been going on there. Not only that, you have to see what these guys say. I think this was in Spanish. Hold on, let me crank this up. Maybe I can hear it.
Militar para volver a Gaza después de un permiso. Es judío de origen latino de 20 años. Fue movilizado el mismo día del ataque de Hamas y ha perdido a varios compañeros.
Y cada día hubo
So he's saying that every day we lost people.
herido o un fallecido. Cada día. El último día que íbamos a salir.
So this is a Spaniard IDF soldier.
Un compañero también cayó.
La guerra es lo más parecido a un infierno, dice, y nos habla de la dureza de los combates.
Yo me he salvado unas 3 o 4 veces de la muerte. Mamá.
So he's almost died 3 or 4 times.
Ha caído un misil a nuestro lado.
He said a missile fell next to us.
Una explosión, el olor a quemado, olor a cuerpos, olor a un infierno, se podría decir.
Le preguntamos también por las víctimas civiles, por las decenas de miles de muertos palestinos, mujeres, niños.
Ahí no hay inocentes. Tenemos que meternos eso en la cabeza.
He said there's no innocence. We have to get it into our heads.
No hay inocentes.
Nobody is innocent.
La misión principal de la brigada de Yehuda.
And that's when she just asked him a question about whether or not how they view children, women and children. So yeah.
Ha sido ayudar a dividir la franja de Gaza en 2 partes.
Ya hemos dividido sur y norte y nadie puede acercarse a esa zona. Si se acercan.
¿Qué haces?
Los matamos.
Y
let's kill ourselves. No, that's not what he says. So she asked him, because he said that they split Gaza in 2, right? That there's North Gaza and there's Southern Gaza, and in between that, there's a line that the IDF has basically created. He's not saying let's kill ourselves. He's saying if anybody goes to that line, we kill them, no matter what.
¿Cómo va a terminar esto? Le preguntamos.
Ojalá con una derrota aplastante. Que no quede nadie ahí.
Que no quede nadie means that nobody is left, that nobody remains there. Yeah. She asked him, how do you think this ends? And basically he said that, yeah, hopefully it's a crushing defeat, and that there's nobody left, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's absolutely bananas. I don't know. I don't know how to deal with that. All right, so moving on to a different subject, I want to talk about the border. This is Andrew Callahan. I watched this video previously, and he's going to tell you a little bit about it. I watched the part where they met up with the coyotes and they got across the river and they swiftly got arrested by the federales.
In the Rio Grande River, hopping the border between Mexico and the United States. Just last year alone, over 2 million migrants entered the U.S. this way. And despite Texas trying to stop them, razor wire, floating barriers, and warning signs, hundreds, if not thousands, still cross every single day. And many, unfortunately, do not survive.
Hundreds of migrants have died trying to make a similar journey. A lot more have been stopped by U.S. Border Police.
But rarely, if not ever, has this process actually been documented from a first-person perspective. So we, as legal American citizens, decided to put ourselves in the shoes of a migrant, at least for the final chapter of their journey, and cross the river ourselves.
He's down to his boxers.
This would prove to be not the best idea. Just a few seconds after crossing back into the U.S., the coyotes we traveled with told us to get down. And as I laid down in the fetal position,
you should have started running,
I could
brother.
hear the sound of tires coming to a halt and gravel crackling on the road.
Fucking noobs.
Manos arriba. Ven pa' acá, usted. English. Hands up. Speak English? Yeah. Get up. Let me see your hands.
Speak English?
No, sir. Face away from me. We're journalists. Usted, manos arriba. Bájate. Súbete. You too. You speak English? Yeah. Stand up.
As it turned out, United States Border Patrol had been following us for the past hour, using infrared heat
For the past hour using infrared
Just a minute
cameras?
later, we were placed under arrest, handcuffed, and put in the back of a Border Patrol vehicle. The agents, however, remained on scene to collect our belongings. And by some miracle of God, they forgot to turn off the cameras or confiscate our SD cards, which is how you were able to see this footage. We thought we were going to be fine. I mean, truth be told, we didn't think what we did was illegal. But oh boy, were we wrong. We spent the next 4 days locked up as detainees at a migrant processing center in Eagle Pass, Texas. We weren't given a phone call until 48 hours after our detention. But thankfully, we'd brought along 2 additional videographers for this particular shoot, who were stationed safe and sound on the American side while we crossed the river. Here is their story.
My name is Juan Jimenez. I'm Elliot Liegren, and we got brought on to do some B-roll and film for Channel 5. All of us were like so extremely confident, like we're gonna get this crazy video of what people go through like every fucking day.
This is 250 calories to prevent me from dying of hunger, and then this is a knife to maybe cut through weeds up there.
And we were just like excited. I think we were all excited to like be able to get that footage. But yeah, Andrew and Susan went to jail.
They went to jail. Yeah. They went to the not good jail.
Turns out, you actually can't do that. So if you're watching this, don't do what I did.
It's a federal offense.
Don't do what I did.
To report.
AKA illegal entry to the United States.
Punishable by up to 1 year in federal prison and or $5,000 in fines.
You can only enter the United States through an official port of entry with a customs agent there. Even if you're an American citizen, you cannot hop the border.
Dog, hold on. So, I remember seeing a news story where the border literally goes through a neighborhood. Somewhere around, I want to say it's somewhere around here, or maybe it was here. Yeah, what do they do there?
enter the United States through an official port of entry with a customs agent there. Even if you're an American citizen, you cannot hop the border into your...
They made him say this.
It took a lot longer, honestly, than I initially thought. I mean, I think we were on the other side 2-3 hours or something.
Yeah,
like
at least. So we had their location, and I was like looking at it, and you guys were moving like super slow, but we were rooting for you, you know what I mean? Like, oh fuck, they're probably like,
So I said they should have just ran.
Crawling through the brush and shit, like fighting off like snakes and scorpions and shit, but
we kept checking like every...
just refreshing,
probably,
just
like 10 minutes just being all right, like, oh, the boys are moving.
They get to the Rio Grande, and we're like, fuck yeah, we made it to the river, you know? And slowly see them cross America. Fuck yeah, they made it. Then they get to the other side, and they're just like motionless for like, gotta be like 15, 20 minutes, and I was like, word, like, you know, again, envisioning them just like,
Dude, they could have ran
BP
in those 15,
by,
20
and,
minutes.
Like, you know, just hiding out, 15, 20, 30 minutes, like, it was like, all right, like, what's going on here? And then, boom, speeding up the highway, and then all of a sudden it was like, bam, like, Eagle Pass, South Texas Border Patrol Station. I was like, fuck, bro.
As soon as the Border Patrol agent apprehended us right across the river, both the coyotes who brought us across jumped back in the river, swim back toward Mexico.
Come back, over here, get over here.
This left us alone in Border Patrol custody.
So I just told them exactly, what was up. I told them, hey, we're journalists. We're trying to interview some migrants. We interviewed some people on the Mexican side. We just interviewed those guys that brought us across, but we don't actually know who they are, which is true. So they were actually pretty cool, like the Border Patrol agents, if I remember correctly. They were like understanding. They just said, okay, we're going to take you to the facility. We're going to run your IDs, run your name, make sure you have no criminal charges. And once we check for that, you guys will begin to. So we thought it was going to be fine. So we get there to the Border Patrol facility. They take the shoelaces out of our shoes, give us flip-flops, give me this blue outfit, and we walk in. It kind of looks like a DMV or a Department of Licensing.
Looks like a DMV.
So you know how it is. It's like you got 6 computers behind this like Citadel-type center complex. Everyone's typing away, running people's names and shit. We're just sitting there waiting, you know what I mean? So I go up there, they take my fingerprint, they take a picture of me, they ask me a couple of basic questions. What were you doing in Mexico? Have you ever been to North Korea? Like, have you ever been to Russia before? Random shit to see if I was like a spy. They were like, and then he was like, all right, cool, sounds good, we'll talk to you in a second. So I sit on one of the benches right there. I'm just waiting to be released, obviously, because I'm like, oh, once they figure out that we are journalists, I was like, look up our channel, you'll see what we do, like we meant no ill intent, it's all good. So the Border Patrol dudes start telling me these stories about how they've had to rescue drowning children and how they've had to discover dead bodies floating in the river and just all these traumatic incidents that their job entails, and how they felt like we were kind of making a mockery of their job and the risk associated by trying to cross, which I was sympathetic to. Looking back, I think we did go a bit beyond what is safe and acceptable, but I wanted to get the story, so I figured it made sense. Looking back, I probably wouldn't do it again. I do my interview. Behind me, there had to have been, I would say, like 200 migrants just staring at me through this glass window. And it was like the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. And they were bewildered as well because they were also wearing these outfits. And they saw I was in the outfit, and I'm visibly American, and Susan is also visibly American. At first it was a little bit awkward, but then I guess there's some metal star in Latin America that looks just like Susan. What's his name? El Buki. El Buki, I guess they're a big fan. So we hear people yelling, El Buki! And going like this, like, El Buki! Susan just turns back and he's like this, El Buki! And they're all just like, yeah! They were hyped on us, And most of these dudes are covered in water from the Rio Grande, like bloodshot eyes. I can't even imagine how long they've been on the road for. Like, if I wasn't mistaken, like most of them were being processed to be sent home. It wasn't like a put you on a bus, take you to Chicago type of situation. It was like kind of dark vibes. And so I'm looking at, all these dudes in the box, as they call it. And I'm like, oh, thank God I'm not going in there. Like it's gonna be fine. And so they call me back up and they're like, Callahan, you're being brought up for prosecution. And they're like, illegal entry into the United States. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean illegal entry? Like, I'm not an illegal. And one of them goes, I know you're not an illegal alien, but you did something an illegal alien would do. I asked the dude there, I'm like, all right, let's keep it real. Like, when are we getting out of here? And he's like, probably a couple hours. Remember that? And I'm like, all right, should I wait in here? He's like, no, we're going to have you wait in the box. I'm just like, dude, no fucking way.
In the box?
I'm not going to lie. I'm like kicking and screaming at this moment. I was like, I'm a fucking American citizen and I have rights. And they were like, you're a detainee. And I guess
you're a detainee.
Detention status isn't.
So what he just expressed right now was white privilege. Sir, you're treating me like I'm a non-white person.
Like being processed in a county jail.
So, I mean, obviously, first thing we did was try to call the Border Patrol office, and it's funny, when I was on the phone with them, like, I was starting to realize that they don't operate like regular cops. Like, if you get booked in, like, a regular county jail, you'll end up on some booking website, like, probably by the end of the night, and all the info's there. They'll see when you got locked up, what you're there for. When I called them, they basically said, if you have friends that are here right now, they are under investigation. And if they're under investigation, we're not at liberty to talk about any of this. They didn't have to confirm, like, whether or not they were there or anything. Like,
being in the custody
Wow.
of CBP is not the same as being in custody of like the police.
Right.
Because police, there's the Constitution and everything, all of that. CBP, not so much, because if you're illegal, you don't have constitutional rights. I mean, they could be charged with human trafficking if they were believed to be so, because, you know, two guys going across the border and you bring somebody with you, that's human trafficking.
So being a detainee is super weird because you don't have access to traditional jail shit. Like, there's no rec time, there's no commissary, or like phone calls. So I go into this box, right? Extremely bright room, probably 20 feet wide, 20 feet long, 20 by 20 room, with maybe 60 migrants in there, all huddled up next to each other. There's one giant
Is
jug
my
of
PC
Gatorade in the
fucking
middle.
up? I think it is. I think I got too much going on. Need to free up some memory. Yeah. You didn't tell me like you were supposed to? Oh no! My bad, dude. That's on me. I forgot. Hi, how are you though? I hope you're doing well. Hi. So you missed it all, by the way. Talked about look at your little face. It's a big face. Talked about these dorks. This dork. And then yeah, he's doing his thing. And then yeah, this shit where they killed the Palestinian Americans. American teen killed in the West Bank. Covered Everybody Hates Jon Stewart. Covered Biden's plan for the day after amounts to a half Palestinian state on half of the West Bank. It's a horrible story. Don't besmirch the word dork. Oh, true. I think you know, could do better. This absolute monster, se habla español. He hey, look who it is. We have everybody here. No, we don't have everybody here. But yes, this absolute monster that said basically they want to murder pretty much women and children. And then these dudes, you know, the depression started to hit because I watched the doctor talking about working on people in the West Bank. Or no, you know, working on people in Gaza, which was terrible.
They
and
have
then
a
these
tiny
dorks
TV in there, and that movie Marley and Me was playing. That Owen Wilson movie.
crossed the border from Mexico. So he went into Mexico and then met up with coyotes.
Man, I've never.
And the coyotes brought him illegally across the border into Texas.
Soy americano, and they're like, americano, y estás aquí, ¿por qué? And so I became like a real golden goose up in that pod. There's this big ass tag on the wall that says MS Honduras, like, you know, MS-13 Honduras.
MS Honduras, yeah, MS-13 Honduras, yeah.
And they're like, Mira, Mississippi! Aha,
Mississippi!
They're acting like I did it because I'm white and they're just fucking with me. Susan is in the other pod across the way, so I see him. I don't know what it was, but I see him sitting there, and this Haitian dude was looking at Susan like he was trying to like run his cheeks type vibes. You remember him? I look over at you, I see you, and this Haitian dude looking at me like this.
Yeah, you mean mugging him.
So I'm laughing hysterically because this guy's got to be 5 feet away from Steven. So I keep going like this, letting him know.
Being in jail is weird, by the way.
Super
so,
cool, like 19-year-old kids from Colombia.
if you've never been to jail, when you go to jail, it's very much like a race thing right away. And people divvy up with people that look like them. it definitely is like being back in high school, I guess. I don't know if your high school was as racist as mine. But that's kind of what jail's like.
Had absolutely
Also, the food sucks.
no idea.
But you get a lot of
what America
sleep,
was
though.
like.
You
Didn't
get to
even know
sleep a
where they were
lot.
going. They were just like, yeah, we just left Medellin from the slums. We left the slums of Medellin 2 days ago. The first thing they asked me is they're like, where do people speak Spanish at? And I was like, pretty much everywhere. You know, a lot of Mexicans in Texas and California and the Southwest.
Yeah.
And in Florida, you got the Cubans and New York.
Se
and
habla
And
ahora.
they were like, what about Nashville? And I was like, no, they don't speak Spanish there. I was like the one place where I was like, they definitely don't speak Spanish there. And they were like, that's where I want to go. And I was like, why? And they were
These
like,
people
Taylor
have no
Swift,
rhythm.
Taylor Swift, she's so sexy. I love Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift. And like that was like their fantasy. It was like cowboy and cowgirl. Like it was that simple. And I realized like, damn, not every migrant is like at the end of their wits. Like some of them just want to have an adventure. And that's what these kids were on. And I was like, you guys worried about getting deported? They're like, nah, we'll just come back again. And so that was interesting. So I chopped it up with them. They were asking me about my tattoos and shit. A lot of
These
them-
Mexicans are just looking for some American girls. Hey.
Pod because there was this kid who wouldn't stop crying. And you know, like, we're not talking about crying. Like, he was like, you know, and no disrespect because I'm sure he was going through it, but like there's 50 dudes in there. Half of them are trying to sleep, some are trying to watch Marley and Me. I keep trying to run the dude up for Capri Suns, and this dude in the corner is blowing everybody's high, and so he's just like, ah! And so I go up to him, naturally being someone who tries to empathize with people. I'm like, dude, what's going on? And he's like, Nepal. I was like, yeah,
Nepal.
He points to his wristband and it said like Nepal 18. He was from Nepal, and I was like, yeah,
Holy
Nepal.
shit.
He was like, Nepal. I was like, God, this guy sucks. But he was cool. He was just so bummed out. And just found it crazy there was people all the way from Nepal and shit. I would say that in the 4 days that we were locked up at the facility,
He was locked up for 4 days.
Processed from all walks of
The
life.
fucking border patrol held him for 4 days.
Countries I didn't even know existed. Uzbekistan. What the hell's that? Like some of them, it was a really difficult situation with the translation because most of the border patrol agents speak Spanish and English. So they're on the phone with the fucking Bangladeshi consulate being like, do you claim this, man? And, you know what I mean? They're like, yeah. They got phones and translators and shit. Kid from Nepal is crying. Got Congress people from Kathmandu being like, bring
He
him
was
home.
only
It's
there
fucking
for 4
nightmare.
days.
It's like you're in
They told him he was going to be out within like a couple hours.
the UN. But man, I saw so many.
Oh no, he said that there was a guy that was being sent to Nepal because so if you go back and watch like Channel 5 like the previous videos, he's been documenting like how people have
While I
been
was
crossing
detained,
into
Elliot and Juan
Texas
did their best to
from the
continue
Mexico
shooting
border.
and walked around Eagle Pass asking people if they knew of something going on.
We went to the smoke shop to get some rolling papers.
Basically,
and, the
not
locals
everybody
there,
that's
they told us
crossing
about some
into
street
Texas
races that
from
were going
Mexico is Mexican. A lot of the people that
I
cross
started before the first
come
race.
from completely different countries. I don't know what's going on right now.
All of a sudden, like, you know, and I just happened to be recording, thank God, like, you know, and fucking, so I got this gnarly car crash on camera, and then the smoke clears, and you can just see the fucking, like, the carcass of that fucking car, like, left there. Oh my God, they were saying
Oh,
it was
that
some
sucks.
$300,000 car that was on
Yeah,
Street
that
Outlaws
looks
or
like a very
something
expensive
like
car.
As night began to fall on the first day of my detention,
I don't know what the story was
Elliot
there.
and Juan went to a
They must
local
have been
bar
talking about
called
something else.
Cooters, expecting me to be released at any moment.
Cooters. Is that you, Brina?
Free them boys! Free my guys! Free them boys, bro. This shit's fucked up, bro.
Then all of a sudden, the guards come back about 3 hours later. They say, everybody except Callahan, get on the bus. Everybody from the pod fucking leaves. And I'm like, what the
Yeah,
fuck?
me and
man?
Brina
I'm
have
trying
been
to get out of
hanging.
here. And they were like, yeah, your
Me and
case is
Brina have been
kinda
hanging.
weird.
Where you been?
Courts are pretty backed up right now.
That's all I want to know.
Have you hang tight, all right? See you in a bit. Fucking as soon as all the homies leave, 60 new guys come in. So I'm sitting alone. All these migrants start dumping into the pod. I'm like, fuck. So this nightmare repeats itself over and over again to the point where even the guards realize they're being a little bit too harsh. So they put me and Susan in a solitary confinement cell together. It was the best moment of my life. They were like, Callahan. And I'm like, oh,
All right, so yeah, jail stories are cool. This goes on for another. You got auto modded for what? Oh, it's showing that stuff? Hold on, let me turn off auto mod. Fuck that. Chat settings. Show. How do I fix auto mod? I don't know. Well, it shows up on the screen though. Like if you look at the screen, like it'll show the chat. Do you need a mod in here? Do you want to be a mod? If you want to be a mod, I can make you a mod. There, you're a mod. Hey, look at that. You got a little sword. So, yeah, did you guys see this video? Also, I want to turn up the audio really loud because I want to hear the Acorn. Hold on. What video? This video. Brina, did you not see this? If you haven't seen this, you're gonna love it. Well, you're not gonna love it. You're gonna hate it, actually. Okay, check this shit out. Is this cranked up? This is cranked up.
Shots fired!
Shots fired!
Shots fired! I'm hit! In the car! I was shot through the car! Oh!
Right down the B word. Bitch. This dude just unloaded his whole clip.
I'm good. I feel weird, but I'm good.
I feel weird. He said, I'm good. I feel weird, but I'm good. And Johnny overheard. No, but forgot. Oh no. Okay, hold on. People are screaming. I'm sorry. So what happened was the deputy misinterpreted the sound of an acorn striking the patrol vehicle as a gunshot. So a little background on the story was that they had been arresting a suspect of Grand Theft Auto, and he did some other things. I forgot what the other charges were, but they already had him handcuffed, arrested, patted him down, and put him in the back of the patrol car, which is what he was shooting at and what he was walking by. So he's walking by the patrol car, hears an acorn hit the patrol car, and then freaks the fuck out because he thinks it's a gunshot. I don't understand how he doesn't know what an actual gunshot sounds like. So he starts shooting. He throws himself on the ground and he starts shooting everywhere.
Stay inside your house. Stay inside your house.
Really frustrating, I think. But yeah, he's being a paranoid asshole. So not only is he being a paranoid asshole, but let's check out the angle of his partner, which I believe this was the partner's video. Oh wait, where'd it go? Aw, dude, where's the partner's video? Oh no, wait! I had it posted over here on Threads. Let me find it real quick. Okay. Oh, here it is. Copy link. Close that. Can I paste? Paste and go. What's your guys' Twitter? Holy Enchilada. I think it's with... Is it with his... No, I don't know if it's with a 0. Oh, wait, hold on. Here, I'll show it to you in a second. This is his partner's video. So you can hear him yell, shots fired, right?
Do you know your tag number off the top of your head? Okay, it's okay. What?
She's like, what? What? And he's like, shots fired. And he rolls up, he gets on the ground.
Where? Right there? Jesse, are you okay?
She just shot exactly in his direction of where he was saying shots fired.
House! Get in the house! Jesse! Get back! Where is he? Where is he? 43, give me traffic. Shots fired. I got a deputy down. Off of McLaren.
These people are crazy.
Shots fired. I got a deputy down.
So there's people that are yelling no right now. That's because of the guy that's in the car that they just shot like what 24 shots at least, 24 bullets at. He was the one that was arrested from the home of where this person was signing whatever document she was signing. That's the guy that was arrested. He was an associate of theirs. I don't know what kind of associate. But yeah, this shit is not okay. Anyway, other cops showed up. They showed up with their AKs, with their AR-15s, not AKs. But yeah, they showed up with their AR-15s. You don't get exactly to see what happens towards the end. I think they spliced the other video into this. But yeah, it's a bunch of just absolutely bananas shit. Reminded me of this video, America's Police Problem, from Second Thought, which I will now let play.
This episode and others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons on...
Hold on, why is this like 2-point speed or something?
Patreon. If you'd like to help me make more political content, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought. Some viewers may find the following content disturbing. Inadvised.
I think America must see that riots do not develop out of thin air. Certain conditions continue to exist.
There is a problem with the police,
which must be condemned as vigorously as we condemn riots. In the final analysis, a riot is the language of the unheard. What is it that America has failed to hear? It failed to hear that the plight of the Negro poor has worsened over the last...
Did you add me on Twitter?
It's failed to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. It has failed to hear that large segment...
Are you Sab? Is that what you? Is that who you are?
Concerned about tranquility and the status quo than about justice, equality, and humanity. So in a real sense, our nation's summers of riots are caused by our nation's
I added you back.
of delay. And as long as America postpones justice, we stand in the position of having these recurrences of violence and riots over and over again. Social justice and progress are the absolute guarantors of riot prevention.
He ain't even resisting the red.
On May 25th, 2020, a 46-year-old black man named George Floyd was murdered by the Minneapolis police. Floyd had recently lost his job as a result.
This is such an old video because I can tell JT actually kind of sped up his voice a little bit.
Of the Minnesota stay-at-home order, and was accused of using a counterfeit $20 bill at a grocery store. In response, the police handcuffed him, pinned him to the ground, and Officer Derek Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. During that time, Floyd pleaded for them to stop. He said he couldn't breathe, that he was in pain. He called out for his mother. We can see one of the officers, Lane, check Floyd's pulse sometime after he's become unresponsive. According to the complaint against Derek Chauvin, Lane asked him twice whether they should roll Floyd onto his side. Both
they
Chauvin and the others
should not have killed him.
Since that day, protests against police brutality have erupted all over the United States.
This is from 3 years ago.
In over 100.
So one thing I'll say about the police, and really not this video, I think this is actually a really good video, but it's kind of dated for the time. I'm going to go into something else that might be a little bit more dated. Hold on. My keyboard keeps dying for some reason. 1033 program. The militarization of the police, which, if you guys aren't aware of, we love to militarize our police.
With military equipment and training on the defense industry has become a major player in the domestic homeland security market, estimated to be worth over $20 billion in goods and services.
Flashbangs, tear gas, rubber bullets, helicopters, armored vehicles.
Historically, going back to the 1960s and 70s, police had shields and riot truncheons and tear gas, but they didn't tend to drive armored vehicles down city streets.
The militarization of police is a trend that's grown for decades. It first came into the limelight during the Ferguson protests in 2014.
We had this outsized, I would characterize it as a hyper-exaggerated response on the part of the police who looked like soldiers.
In America, every 40 hours, a black person is killed by police. And every 1 out of 1,000 black people can expect to die due to police violence. These are statistics that should unnerve us all.
Did you know they had this kind of firepower?
No, not at all.
With military equipment and training on full display across the country, many are questioning its implications. How exactly is local law enforcement acquiring military equipment? And does the gear help keep communities safe? Since 2005, the defense industry has spent over $100 million in lobbying efforts annually, partially to secure their interest in the domestic homeland security market, worth over $20 billion in goods and services. Their contributions play a major role in maintaining a steady flow of militarized equipment to local law enforcement.
Certainly vendors, companies that manufacture the technology that the police are purchasing, are profiting.
There was something that somebody pointed out on Threads about the gun that the guy was using in that video. Is it had hollow sights on it, which is like an aftermarket component that you would put on a gun, right? And they were like, why does he even have hollow sights on there? This is the reason. There is a militarization of the police in the United States. It started, I want to say back in the early 2000s. What was going on in the early 2000s was the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, right? Excuse me if I don't pronounce those names properly. I'm a dumb American. But the militarization of the police has happened because there is so much overstock and so much overuse of weapons and vehicles that we use in other countries that have to be decommissioned at a certain point. And rather than throwing them away and doing nothing with them, they have a buyer. And the buyer is your local police department. Not only is it major police departments like the New York Police, LA, and you're saying them wrong, but you don't correct yourself, and that's the definition of dumb American. That's the problem. Yes, it is a problem. It's like, okay, so I speak Spanish, but I'm not going to say burrito like every time, right? Like, I'm not going to say, taco. Like, I'm going to say it in the dumb American way that I know to say dumb American stuff. So, excuse me for being a dumb American. I'm sorry. I apologize. Okay, continue. I'm learning. So the 1033 program was introduced to basically have these these police departments be able to buy the overflow or overstock or decommissioned weapons and vehicles and artillery and stuff, like even drones and whatnot. I wouldn't be surprised if we see actual drones in the United States flying around, because that's the type of shit that's on sale. So when we supply weapons to another country, like say Israel or the Ukraine, we supply them with kind of like our older stuff that the U.S. military isn't using anymore. That's why Israel has so many dumb bombs. There was that story that was released not too long ago, maybe like a month or two ago, where they said that Israel's dropping dumb bombs, so like they don't even know where they're going. And it's like, well, no shit, Sherlock. Those are bombs that we were using back in Vietnam and Korea. Like, those are bombs that didn't have a GPS or laser guidance back then. But now what they've done with dun bombs is they've created these packs, these JDAM packs that they can attach to them, and that's what Israel uses now. So we sell them the dun bomb, and we also give them the JDAM to attach to it, and now it has laser tracking on it. And if that doesn't get sold, which I don't think we're gonna sell bombs to police departments, but let's say like the Lenco, ATV, not ATV, what are they called? MRAP. It's an MWRAP. If the MRAP doesn't get sold or it's not used, then they'll resell that. They'll ship it back to the U.S. and resell it to like the smallest police department in the United States of like 1,000 people for like $500 or something, and just to say that they like made a profit on it. But really, what it is the further militarization of the police.
From this. The police, obviously, they're not in the business of profit.
And this is where the military-industrial complex of the United States screws over the common citizen, because not only are we paying the $800 billion tab, essentially $1 trillion a year for the creation of these weapons. These weapons go on and get shipped over to Ukraine and Israel and whatever the country we're supporting. They also end up coming back and they get used on us. So,
profiting from private acquisitions.
We've seen extensive lobbying from defense industries who produce educational videos.
And then these industries, these companies, use the money that we gave them to lobby and get further laws to where they can get more money.
We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to directly lobby Congress for defense spending, but also for these police programs.
The police also have their own lobbying organizations that work towards securing budgets and equipment for local law enforcement. The National Fraternal Order of Police is one of them, and has lobbied in favor of federal grants that are responsible for the militarization of police.
It's really a variety of Homeland Security grants administered by the COPS office, the Department of Homeland Security, etc., that have allowed departments to directly purchase military-grade equipment. And this has been essential to stimulating a domestic law enforcement market for military contractors. In some cases, the folks who provide the equipment actually directly assist police departments in making these grants. There's even a website that is sponsored by these defense contractors and other providers.
You can go there right now. Maybe you can get a Lenco yourself.
Departments in the production of these grant proposals.
This whole industry grew significantly during the War on Drugs campaign in the 1970s.
Congress passed a law that focused on incorporating cooperation between the military and the local law enforcement, particularly related to countering drug crimes and the war on drugs, right? That was sort of the first connection between the military and domestic law enforcement.
In 1989, Congress passed the National Defense Authorization Act, temporarily allowing the Department of Defense to transfer excess military equipment to federal and state agencies. The program continued until the 1997 National Defense Authorization Act expanded it to include local law enforcement.
Here we go.
It made it permanent under a new name, the 1033 program. That began a massive transfer of military equipment to local police departments free of charge, as long as they paid for shipping and maintenance.
The 1033 program was the congressional authorization that allowed police departments to basically go online. There were catalogs of weapons and vehicles and aircraft and watercraft and any kind of military, surplus military equipment was available for the asking, and it was at no cost to law enforcement agencies.
Departments may purchase shotguns that are placed in police vehicles as a routine matter, and some departments are purchasing a variety of less lethal weaponry with their own resources. But when we see sniper equipment, armored vehicles, large amounts of body armor, this is often the result of federal spending.
Yeah, all that body armor that they're wearing, they're like laced up from head to toe. That's all like military equipment.
Exception, over 11,500 domestic law enforcement agents.
That's military equipment that we paid for. That probably went to like
have taken part in the 1033.
The Middle East and came back,
receiving more than $7.4 billion in military equipment.
What you end up seeing is, as a result of the 1033 program, local law enforcement continue to ramp up what we call special task force, like SWAT teams, gang task force, drug task force, right? That all utilize this excess military material.
In July 2014, Congressman Alan Grayson proposed a legislation to limit the transfer of certain weapons through the 1033 program. The amendment was met with immense opposition, failing on a bipartisan vote of 62 to 355. The people who voted not to change the 1033 program received 70% more money in campaign contributions from the defense sector than those who wanted restrictions.
That's exactly how it is.
One of the really troubling developments about the involvement of the federal government in the direct subsidy of purchases of militarized equipment is that this is really about creating a new market for defense contractors rather than really putting questions of public safety first.
So the defense contractors win here on two ends. Not only do they continue to... God damn. Damn Moobot. Oh snap. Almost time for bed. But yeah, as soon as this commercial's over, I forgot I put the Moobot on there, and the Moobot does the commercials like every hour, but also I did it as a reminder. Yeah, I did that. So I did the commercial thing as a reminder for myself to go to sleep, basically. But I'm going to finish this video and then I'm going to go to sleep.
Equipment, the federal government also allows the police to
look
purchase
at
new
these
equipment
eyes.
using their own funds under the 1122 program. It also gives local police departments the same discounts enjoyed by the federal government.
We've seen instances across the country where local governing bodies like boards of selectmen and mayors and city councilors are often unaware that tax dollars have been expended to acquire these kinds of military weapons and military
How are
vehicles.
they unaware?
What makes both 1033 and 1122 programs so powerful is the lack of clear oversight and accountability. The 1122 program, for instance, is not a grant or transfer program, and thus is not required to be monitored by the federal government. Meanwhile, the 1033 program has put lethal weapons in the hands of officers who have no justifiable need for such equipment.
We've seen instances reported of some small towns, even some college and university police departments that were acquiring military-grade weapons without any demonstrable need for the use of these or the acquisition of these weapons.
So this is why, like, if you ever turn on the news and they're like, the SWAT team showed up today at this person's house, and they busted in the door with this little tiny tank that has a big arm on it. Like, that's probably something that they got that's modified from
the Obama
overseas.
administration sought to tighten the 1033 program with additional requirements. And
Okay, that's cool.
After months of
Have a good one. I'll be over. I'll be done in a minute. I'll be over.
From giving some types of military equipment to local.
What do you want me to do? You want me to message you on Instagram?
Can sometimes give people a feeling like there's an occupying force as opposed to a force that's part of the community that's protecting them and serving them.
And this led to calls in Congress to eliminate 1033 and eventually measure an executive order by the Obama administration.
I'll do that for sure.
Place some limits on the type of equipment that could be used. Things like bayonets and turreted armored vehicles.
Yeah, I'm
the
gonna go to
Obama
sleep in a
administration
minute.
also required police agencies to justify purchases of equipment considered potentially lethal. President Trump, however, rescinded all of those measures within 2 years
Oh yeah, this
in office.
The Obama administration made some efforts to increase accountability and auditing of this, but even then, the restrictions and oversight were quite limited. Under the Trump administration, there's even less evidence of any oversight, any sense that we know how this equipment is being used or whether or not officers are being properly trained in how to use it.
In some cases, equipment transferred through these programs has simply vanished due to a lack of oversight and poor bookkeeping.
There have been a number of situations where there have been audits of local police departments to try to figure out what they've done with this equipment, and these departments
Where'd the
have been
weapons go?
unable to
Who knows?
provide adequate records. We don't know if this is a local sheriff taking home camping supplies or if this is about stuff that's really gone missing, has been resold, or has just simply been lost.
Oftentimes, the militarization of the police force might be what's distracting them from their original purpose, protecting our communities.
There's no direct correlation between having military equipment from the 1033 program and seeing a reduction in crime or an increase in officer safety. When you increase,
there's no connection in the militarization of the police and a reduction in crime, is what he just said.
You often increase the likelihood of violence within communities from police.
The research.
The increase of guns increases
when
violence.
You increase the military equipment to police departments, you often increase the likelihood of violence within communities from police.
The research I've overwhelmed.
Those are escalation tactics. They are not de-escalation tactics, which is a problem in the United States when everybody has guns. When everybody can own guns and everybody can carry guns everywhere as they please, these situations often get escalated.
Overwhelmingly done. Shows that police officers are trained for tactics and worst case scenarios. However, their interactions on a regular basis are not worst case scenario. They are not dealing oftentimes with school shootings or mass shootings. They deal with those, but instead primarily what they're doing is having a conversation with someone.
Right.
And if they're only spending 8 hours on de-escalation and nearly 60 hours firing a gun, and then another large chunk of time driving a vehicle, well, when they get in a situation, this is why they pull guns when people don't think those guns should be pulled, because that's what they have been trained to do.
When they bring this kind of this military hardware and this kind of potential for the use of force and violence to a protest, that's something that's not going to produce the desired outcome. It's going to make people angry. It's going to make them outraged. It's going to frighten them. It's going to make them feel that the police are not there to ensure that they are safely able to engage in the activities that they're engaging in that are protected by the Constitution.
And this is why you see a lot of programs where the police now go and try to actively do outreach programs to the community where they like deliver cookies to a puppy or whatever it is that they put on the news. because the militarization of the police has led to an escalation in violence, basically, in the interactions between people and the police. Because when you see a person that is dressed up like a soldier would be in an active war zone, you question that and you say, oh man, it looks like I'm going to get shot, in your mind, at least. It doesn't seem like a safe situation when you call for assistance to get a cat out of a tree and the person that shows up brings a gun to the situation. That does not seem like a de-escalatory tactic. There's a lot of issues that we have with the police in the United States, and I think there is some argument for reform or change. We could get into what the arguments would be for that, as to why the whole defunding the police message is good or bad. But one thing that I will say is I don't believe that the militarization of the police is a good idea. It has not led us in the right path. It seems to have led to more problems. Also, the minimal training that the police receive, as we can see here in this situation, has also been a major issue, where this dude just wants to throw himself on the ground and roll around like a little roly-poly and then start shooting his own car, all because he heard an acorn hit his own car. There's a lack of training. There's it's funny, the parallels between the U.S. police and the IDF. Lack of training, very inexperienced people when they begin. These guys get 6 weeks. The overabundance of weapons and the over equipment. Like, I honestly don't believe in. And in the UK, police do not have guns. Are all of their police officers dead? No. So, good example. But I'll leave it on that. I'm really tired.